Hello and welcome to CX Today. My name's David Dungay. Today I'm joined by Andriy Zakharchenko, Product Evangelist at Cyara. Welcome, Andriy. How are you?
I'm doing great, thanks.
Fantastic. So today we're going to be talking about testing or putting the right testing in place when it comes to cloud migration. Incredibly important topic that a lot of people actually overlook. But before we get into that subject matter, Andriy, do you want to give us a bit of an introduction to yourself and Cyara?
Sure. My name is Andrei. I've been with Cyara close to 11 years at this point. I'm part of our product organization and a little bit about Cyara. Cyara is a automation and testing company that plays in CX marketplace. We're providing automation testing and monitoring services for everything that is related to customer experience, all the way from voice interactions and into chatbots and conversational AI. We work with all of the major vendors, and we've made it our passion to help customer experience transformation projects.
And I'm sure with some of those projects, you've seen a lot of things go right and a lot of things go wrong as well, I'm sure. Maybe we could talk about a few of the pitfalls, that organizations might encounter when they're going through this cloud migration. What are you seeing from your perspective on that?
Yes, that's a very good question. Um, there's actually a very interesting article that McKinsey Research wrote on this back in 2021, which still rings true today. And to summarize, the biggest challenges that organizations face when they are doing migration projects is related to inefficiency. So they're either typically over budget or over time on their projects or both. And that's for the majority of enterprises, regardless of size. So all of this is related to quite a few different factors. Um, a lot of a lot of times, even the basic things like skill sets are changing in the world. So a lot of organizations are moving from one level of complexity and technologies to a completely different set, and the skills that they've acquired over the last few decades do not always transfer. There's also challenges with planning, and um, that that really means that the key areas within projects are typically known, but what they mean for the organization and how to um, apply existing knowledge in a new world doesn't always work. Um, and finally, not all bits are known. For example, in our space, clearly in automation and testing, um, organizations are not always thinking through what that means for them and how to properly address or prevent potential challenges from happening. There's also issues like existing legacy systems and vendor lock-in. There's picking the proper partners and integrators that are able to uh, accelerate and keep the projects operating as intended, as well as basic backend system and legacy system compatibility with the cloud, because many organizations don't necessarily move everything all at once, and it's a step-by-step process, and that relies on integrating and extending their legacy environments and connecting it all up to the cloud, and that proves challenging most of the time.
I want to pick up on one thing you said there, Andre, and that's I guess it kind of feeds into your planning point. What should companies be thinking about, before they begin their migrations? What does that look like from their perspective?
So to us, that manifests in a planning process, meaning putting actual effort and putting together a project plan that is at a level of detail where each business unit and each application is known within that. And that can be used as a roadmap and as a communications platform between different vendors and internal organizations and the business units themselves to be successful.
Right. Well, let's get on to the testing questions. What is the best time to start integrating performance testing plans? When you're going through this cloud migration journey, how do you and Cyara see that?
Um, Typically, test plans and especially performance testing should be added at the very start of the project, or at least conceptualized. You may not always know what the actual detailed plan is going to be, but you should leave space in your project plan for key performance activities. One of the biggest pitfalls that we see out in the wild is organizations overestimating the stability and ability of different platforms that they're working with, and they are adding in performance testing at the tail end of their project as a checkbox exercise. And most of the time they're in for a rude awakening where they find that a lot of the things that they could have done much earlier that have a significantly smaller cost at the start of the project are now causing major delays and exposure for the whole business unit or even the whole company. So to paraphrase, as soon as your project plan is ready, and as soon as you have basic understandings of what the architecture of your new platform is going to look like, that's when you should be thinking about where to put performance testing. And it's not just in one spot. It's many, many different iterations.
Yeah. So, what about best practice and testing strategies? What would you recommend from that point of view? For lots of people watching today, they'll be wondering how to implement this. What is the best practice? How do you see that side of things?
Sure. This typically starts with an assessment of the legacy system before you even begin the process of migration. Typically, most organizations don't have a good understanding of how their existing infrastructure and contact center stand up to critical loads. So we recommend doing a baseline, or you could call it a high watermark assessment before the migration begins, and that will set up it will be like a litmus test for your new integration or your new capability that you're bringing in to make sure that it's able to withstand at least your legacy load and customer from a customer perspective. Other than that, it is very important to understand the different types of performance testing that exist out there. And we have materials that are published on that topic, so I'm not going to go through the minute details. But as an example, a failover exercise is significantly different from an avalanche test, which is significantly different from a soak test. But those are all different types of performance testing that can be exercised within your strategy. Also, as you're putting together plans, it is important to bring in all of the stakeholders, both internal and external. So different business units, your IT and your CX business units, your different application owners, and different vendors that are going to be impacted, like going from your platform providers to integrators, and even bringing in consulting firms and service integrators that you're working with to make sure that when you're going through the exercises, all of the necessary people are involved and are able to react to issues as you find them.
Let's talk about the people element then. trading. Obviously, you mentioned earlier that people aren't always completely aware of their cloud environment. Maybe you could highlight some of those risks associated with insufficient training for those people on that awareness of the cloud environment and what that means kind of during a migration.
Right. So on its surface, a lot of times a contact center or a CX overall migration from a legacy space into a new cloud-based architecture doesn't present itself as extremely complex. But the reality is, just like I said before, a lot of the skills that exist today do not transfer from legacy to cloud. And that can go all the way from old protocols like SIP does not always exist in cloud implementations. It's frequently substituted for things like WebRTC. But even vendor understanding at a higher level and the capabilities and limitations are not always known. Security applications and security skill sets don't always transfer. Um, a lot of your a lot of these gaps can be bridged. It's just that they need to be planned for. And anybody that is doing conversational AI may find themselves hunting for a very limited skill set in the current market, where a lot of the data scientist folks are already working for somebody. So you're going to have to find a way to get them to contract or work for you. And that gets pretty expensive as well.
Yeah. So, Andriy, we're coming towards the end of the session, but I want to just leave our viewers with one last piece of insight from yourself, and that is what's coming around the corner. We're seeing these migration journeys and cloud technologies evolving all the time. Do you see any sort of emerging risks for organizations, undergoing this kind of transformation down the line in the future?
Absolutely. So just to summarize and to make sure that I'm going to repeat this one more time, and this is coming from, of course, our very specific space. Do not forget about automation as part of the migration. It will definitely accelerate the pace at which you're able to transform your organization, and it will also prevent a lot of escalations and cost overruns. Having said that, planning ahead is the most important bit in a migration strategy. So, and I don't mean that in terms of just a project plan, but also understanding what you're trying to get out of the migration. Why are you doing it in the first place? And taking into account that you are now in a completely different world of typically cloud subscriptions and what that means for your organization. So how those vendors are going to change and how those vendors are going to evolve should be part of your longer term strategy.
Fantastic. Andriy, I think that's a great place to end today's discussion. Thank you so much for joining me and sharing some of your insights.
No problem. Thank you.
And thank you for watching. You've been watching me, David Dungay, on CX Today. If you liked today's conversation, please give us a like and a share on social media. That's it from me. See you next time.